My brother told me I wasn't family, but I proved him wrong. Some wounds cut so deep they carve out the very foundation of who you think you are. But sometimes, those wounds become the birthplace of the strongest version of yourself. My name is Delilah Morrison, and this is the story of how I learned that family isn't always about blood, and how I discovered that sometimes, the most profound betrayals come from those who share your DNA. The call came on a Tuesday at exactly 2:47 p.m. I remember the precise time because I'd been staring at my laptop screen for what felt like hours, wrestling with a particularly stubborn paragraph about municipal budget allocations. Hardly the most thrilling subject matter, but it paid the bills. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, Grind and Flourish, the one with the mismatched vintage chairs and the barista named Jake who knew my order by heart. Medium cappuccino, extra shot, oat milk, and a dash of cinnamon that he'd started adding without asking after he noticed me sprinkling it on top every day for 3 months. The autumn rain was painting abstract patterns on the window beside me, each droplet catching the amber light from the overhead fixtures. The shop hummed with its usual Tuesday afternoon energy. College students bent over textbooks, freelancers like me claiming corner tables, the gentle whoosh of the espresso machine providing a comforting soundtrack to productivity. I'd been coming here for 2 years, ever since I'd moved to the downtown apartment that finally felt like home after a series of soul-crushing roommate situations in my early 20s. My phone buzzed against the worn wooden table, vibrating just enough to make my coffee cup dance slightly in its saucer. The sound cut through my concentration like a knife through silk. Ethan flashed across the screen, and my heart did that familiar little flutter it always did when my older brother called. We hadn't spoken in 3 weeks, which wasn't unusual given our busy schedules, but I'd been meaning to reach out. Our last conversation had ended on a weird note, something about Dad's will and inheritance that I hadn't fully understood. "Hey, big brother," I answered, setting down my red pen and automatically tucking a strand of my dark hair behind my ear, a nervous habit I'd had since childhood. "Perfect timing. I was just thinking about calling you. This budget article is making my brain turn to mush, and I could use a distraction." Silence. Not the comfortable kind of silence we'd shared 1,000 times over our 31 and 28 years of siblinghood, the kind that stretched between us during long car rides, or when we were both reading in Dad's study on Sunday afternoons, or when we'd sit on the back porch after family dinners, too content to need words. This was different, heavy, loaded with something dark and unnameable that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. It was the kind of silence that preceded bad news, the kind that made you wish you could reach through the phone and shake the person on the other end until they just spoke and ended the terrible suspense. "Ethan, you there? Did I lose you?" "Yeah." His voice came through flat, emotionless in a way that made my stomach clench involuntarily. It reminded me of the voice he'd used when he'd had to call me to tell me about Dad's heart attack 6 months earlier. Clinical, carefully controlled, like he was trying to keep something massive and terrible from spilling out. "I'm here. Is everything okay? You sound strange. Did something happen? Is Mom all right?" "Delilah." The way he said my name stopped me cold. Clinical, distant, like he was addressing a stranger, or worse, like he was a doctor about to deliver a terminal diagnosis. Not Dee or Lila, or any of the dozen affectionate variations he'd used throughout our lives. Just Delilah, formal and final. "We need to talk." I set down my coffee cup with shaking hands, suddenly unable to taste the warmth that had been comforting me moments before. The cappuccino that Jake had made with extra care now tasted like ash in my mouth. Around me, the coffee shop continued its normal rhythm. Conversations flowing, keyboards clicking, the espresso machine hissing, but it all seemed to happen at a distance, as if I'd been suddenly encased in glass. "Okay. What's going on?" Another pause. In that silence, I heard the echoes of our entire shared history. Him teaching me to ride my first two-wheeler in the driveway. His steady voice calling, "I've got you, Dee, I've got you," as he ran beside me. Him defending me from the Miller twins who'd made fun of my glasses in 3rd grade. Standing between me and them with his chest puffed out despite being only 2 years older and barely bigger. Him sneaking me chocolate chip cookies when Mom said I'd had enough. Conspiratorially whispering, "Don't tell Mom," with crumbs still on his lips. The brother who'd been my protector, my confidant, my partner in crime, My best friend for most of my life. The brother who'd taught me how to throw a proper punch when Jimmy Patterson had been bothering me in 7th grade. The brother who'd held me while I cried when my first boyfriend broke my heart. Who'd wanted to go punch said boyfriend in the face until I talked him out of it. All of that history, all those years of unconditional love and support, seemed to hover in the silence between us like ghosts I was about to lose forever. "I've been thinking about everything that's happened," he said finally. "About the will, about Dad's decision, about what it means for our family moving forward. Ethan, you're scaring me. Just tell me what's wrong." "What's wrong is that you're not actually family, Delilah." The words hit me like a physical blow to the chest, like someone had reached into my ribcage and squeezed my heart until it forgot how to beat properly. The coffee shop around me seemed to tilt on its axis, the gentle murmur of conversations and the hiss of the espresso machine suddenly too loud, too overwhelming, too normal for a world that had just fundamentally changed. I gripped the edge of my table so hard my knuckles went white, trying to anchor myself to something solid as reality shifted beneath me. "What did you just say?" My voice came out as barely a whisper, rough with shock. "You heard me." His voice was steady now, resolved, like he'd been practicing this speech. Like he'd rehearsed it in front of a mirror until he could deliver it without flinching. "You're not family anymore." "Not really. Not after what we found out." My hands started shaking so violently I had to clasp them together in my lap. I could feel tears starting to form behind my eyes, hot and unwelcome. The woman at the table next to me glanced over with concern, probably wondering why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. If only she knew that I was currently watching my entire identity die in real time. "Ethan, I don't understand. What are you talking about?" "The DNA test results, Delilah. From Dad's medical records. The ones the lawyer needed for the inheritance processing." Everything went quiet. Even the rain seemed to pause, as if the universe itself was holding its breath, waiting to see how much more damage could be inflicted with words. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, rapid and panicky, like a caged bird throwing itself against the bars. "We're not full siblings," he continued, and each word was a nail in the coffin of everything I'd believed about myself, about my place in the world, about who I was. "You're only my half-sister. Mom had an affair 29 years ago. Dad wasn't your biological father." The DNA results were in his medical files from when the doctors were looking at his heart condition genetics. The lawyers found them during the estate processing. The phone slipped from my suddenly nerveless fingers, clattering onto the table hard enough to make my coffee cup jump and send drops of cappuccino splattering across my notebook. The woman at the next table definitely noticed now, half rising from her chair as if to help, but I barely registered her existence. My entire identity was rewriting itself in real time, 28 years of memories suddenly cast in a harsh, unfamiliar light. Every family resemblance I'd never shared, every joke about how I looked nothing like the rest of them, every moment I'd felt slightly out of step with the family rhythm suddenly clicked into place with devastating clarity. I picked up the phone with trembling hands, my fingers fumbling with a smooth surface that suddenly felt foreign, like I'd forgotten how to use basic technology. "Ethan, even if that's true, how does that make me not family? You're still my brother. I'm still your sister. We grew up together. We have 28 years of shared memories, shared experiences. I'm still the same person who—" "No." The word was final, brutal, delivered with the kind of finality usually reserved for death sentences. "You're not. And frankly, it explains a lot. Why you never quite fit in at family gatherings. Why Dad always seemed to treat you differently, like he was trying too hard. Why you look nothing like any of us. Why you never understood our family's sense of humor the way I did. Why you were always so different." Each accusation was a fresh wound. Tears were streaming down my face now, hot and unstoppable, leaving tracks that I didn't bother to wipe away. I could taste salt and betrayal and the complete destruction of everything I'd thought I knew about my place in the world. "That's not true. Dad loved me. You know he did. He came to every single one of my school plays, even the terrible ones. He taught me how to drive, how to change a tire. He walked me down the aisle at my college graduation because I asked him to. He was proud of me. Did he? Or did he just tolerate you because he had to? Because mom forced him to raise another man's child? Because what was the alternative? Abandoning a kid and looking like the bad guy. The cruelty in his voice was breathtaking, surgical in its precision. This wasn't the brother I knew, the one who'd spent years protecting me from exactly this kind of emotional violence. This was someone else entirely, someone who'd taken an inventory of all my deepest insecurities and decided to weaponize every single one of them. Think about it, Delilah. Really think. Did he ever look at you the way he looked at me? Did he ever seem as natural with you as he was with me? Ethan, please. Where is this coming from? Why are you saying these things? I'm saying them because they need to be said. Because I'm tired of pretending. The inheritance is going to me and Mom as it should. Dad's real family. You can contest it if you want, but legally, you don't have a leg to stand on. I don't care about the money, I whispered, my voice breaking. I care about you. About us. About our family. There is no us, Delilah. There never really was. The line went dead. I sat there in that coffee shop for I don't know how long, staring at my phone screen, waiting for it to ring again. Waiting for him to call back and tell me it was all a horrible mistake, that he was angry about something else and taking it out on me. Waiting for my brother, my protector, my champion, to remember who we were to each other. He never called back. The next few days passed in a haze of disbelief, grief, and a kind of emotional vertigo that left me stumbling through my daily routines like a ghost haunting my own life. I couldn't eat. Everything tasted like cardboard and ashes. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Ethan's voice delivering his verdict on my unworthiness. I couldn't concentrate on anything for more than a few minutes at a time. My editor, Rebecca, called twice asking about my deadline, and both times I stared at my phone until it stopped ringing, unable to form the words to explain that my entire identity had been erased with a single phone call. I kept replaying every childhood memory, searching for signs I'd missed, clues that I didn't belong. Had Dad really treated me differently? Were the looks I sometimes caught between my parents, quick, unreadable glances over dinner, whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room, actually about me? Had I been living in a carefully constructed lie for 28 years? My apartment, which had always felt like a sanctuary, my first real home after years of cramped dorm rooms and shared living spaces, suddenly felt like a mausoleum. Every family photo on my walls seemed to mock me. There I was at Christmas morning, age 7, laughing as Ethan helped me unwrap the bicycle I'd begged for, both of us still in our matching red pajamas that Mom insisted on every year. There we were at my high school graduation, Dad's arm around my shoulders, pride evident in his eyes as he beamed at the camera. His "My Daughter the Scholar" button prominently displayed on his lapel. There was my college graduation, all 4 of us together, smiling at the camera, looking like the perfect American family. Had it all been performance? Had Dad been acting the part of loving father while secretly resenting the burden I represented? Had every "I'm proud of you" been a lie designed to keep peace in the house? I called in sick to work for 3 days straight. My editor, Rebecca, was understanding but concerned. "Delilah, honey, what's going on? This isn't like you." But I couldn't explain it to her. How do you tell someone that your entire identity has been erased with a single phone call? How do you describe the feeling of being cut loose from your moorings, set adrift in a world where suddenly you don't know who you are or where you belong? On Thursday, I finally worked up the courage to call my mother. "Mom," I said when she answered, my voice hoarse from crying. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." "Of course, sweetheart. What is it? Is it true? About Dad not being my biological father?" The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. "Oh, Delilah." Her voice broke like a dam bursting, and I could hear her starting to cry. The kind of crying that comes from a place of deep shame and regret. "How did you find out?" "Ethan told me. From Dad's medical records during the estate processing." "Mom, please. I need you to tell me the truth. Is it true?" "Yes." The word was barely a whisper, So quiet I almost didn't hear it. Yes, it's true. Your father isn't. Richard wasn't your biological father. Another piece of my foundation crumbled away, taking with it the last vestige of hope that this was all some terrible misunderstanding. I closed my eyes and leaned back in my kitchen chair, feeling suddenly ancient, weighted down by the truth I'd been living my entire life without knowing it. Who? I asked, my voice coming out hoarse. Who is my real father? It doesn't matter, baby. He was never in the picture. He doesn't even know you exist, and he never wanted to. Your dad, Richard, he was your real father in every way that counted. He loved you so much, Delilah. From the moment you were born, from the second I placed you in his arms. He loved you like you were his own blood. More than his own blood, even. He used to say you were the best surprise he'd ever gotten. But I wasn't. DNA doesn't make a family, sweetheart. Love does. Choice does. Every single day your father chose to be your dad. Every single day he chose to love you. Then why does Ethan hate me now? Why did he say those horrible things? Mom was quiet for a long moment. He's hurting, Delilah. We all are. Losing Dad was hard enough, but then finding out about the paternity issue during the will process. It's brought up a lot of complicated feelings. So he's taking it out on me. He's wrong to do that. What he said to you was cruel and unfair. But you're not defending me to him, are you? Another pause. Another nail in my coffin. Mom. It's complicated, honey. The family is going through a lot right now, and emotions are running high. Maybe it's best if we all take some time to process everything. Are you choosing him over me? I'm not choosing anyone over anyone. I just think some space might be good for everyone. But I heard what she wasn't saying. I heard the choice in her silence, in the way she wouldn't fight for me, wouldn't demand that Ethan apologize, wouldn't insist that I was still her daughter regardless of biology. I see, I said quietly. Delilah, I love you. That will never change. But it's not enough, is it? It's not enough to fight for me. I hung up before she could respond. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, watching the patterns of light from passing cars paint temporary murals on the white surface above me. Each set of headlights would sweep across the room, illuminate the familiar contours of my bedroom, then disappear, leaving me in darkness again. It felt metaphorical in the worst possible way. I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. More alone than when I'd moved to a new city for college knowing no one. More alone than during my brief, disastrous engagement to Marcus 3 years earlier, when I'd realized I was marrying someone who didn't really know me at all. More alone than in the months after Dad's heart attack, when grief had felt like a constant companion. This was different. This was the aloneness that comes from discovering that your entire sense of self had been built on quicksand, that the people you trusted most in the world had been living with a secret that fundamentally altered who you were. My brother had disowned me with surgical precision. My mother had chosen neutrality, which felt like abandonment wrapped in a prettier bow. My father, the only one who might have fought for me, who might have reminded Ethan that love makes family, not genetics, was gone. But somewhere in that crushing darkness, somewhere between the waves of grief and confusion and betrayal, something else began to grow. Not hope exactly, but something harder. Something more determined. Something that felt like it had been forged in the fires of rejection and tempered by abandonment. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind that burns bright and fast and leaves nothing but ash. This was different. This was the cold, calculating kind that burns steady and long, the kind that doesn't burn out but burns through everything in its path until it reaches its goal. The kind that transforms coal into diamonds under pressure. Who was Ethan to decide I wasn't family? Who was anyone to tell me I didn't belong? I'd been a Morrison for 28 years. I'd bled Morrison blood when I scraped my knees as a child. I'd carried the Morrison name through school, through college, through my career. I'd grieved as a Morrison when Dad died. DNA didn't make me less of a Morrison. Just made me a different kind of Morrison. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. I showered, dressed in my favorite power suit, the navy blue one that made me feel invincible, and went to work. "Rebecca," I said, walking into my editor's office. "I need to take on a big project. Something that will challenge me. Something important." She looked up from her computer, relief evident in her eyes. "There's my star reporter. Welcome back. What did you have in mind?" "I want to do a series on family dynamics. Specifically, how families handle inheritance disputes and the way money can destroy relationships. I want to interview lawyers, therapists, families who've been torn apart by greed and power struggles." "That's very specific. And very personal, I'm guessing." He nodded. "The most personal thing I've ever written. But I think it needs to be told." Over the next 3 months, I threw myself into that project with an intensity that surprised even me. I interviewed dozens of families, legal experts, psychologists. I researched inheritance law, family dynamics, the psychology of rejection and abandonment. But more importantly, I began to understand something crucial. I wasn't alone. Story after story poured out from my interviews. Adult children disowned over inheritance disputes. Siblings turned against each other by parents who'd played favorites. Families destroyed by the toxic combination of grief, money, and old resentments. And in every story, I found pieces of my own experience reflected back at me. There was Margaret, whose brother had excluded her from their father's will because she'd married outside their religion. There was David, whose sister had convinced their mother that he was only after her money, resulting in him being written out of her life entirely. There was Carmen, whose family had rejected her after she'd come out as transgender, claiming she was no longer the son they'd raised. Each interview strengthened my resolve. Each story reminded me that family rejection wasn't about the worthiness of the person being rejected. It was about the fear, insecurity, and cruelty of those doing the rejecting. My series, titled Blood Money, When Inheritance Tears Families Apart, was published 6 months after Ethan's phone call. It won 3 journalism awards and was optioned for a documentary. But more importantly, it helped me reclaim my narrative. I wasn't the rejected daughter anymore. I wasn't the family mistake or the unwanted half-sister. I was Delilah Morrison, award-winning journalist, successful professional, and someone who'd survived being abandoned by her family and come out stronger. The recognition gave me something I hadn't expected. A platform. Suddenly, I was getting calls from other people who'd experienced family rejection. I was invited to speak at conferences about resilience and family dynamics. I started receiving letters from readers who'd found hope in my words. One letter in particular stuck with me. It was from a young man named Alex whose family had disowned him after he'd decided not to take over the family business. "Your article made me realize that their rejection of my choices wasn't a reflection of my worth," he wrote. "It was a reflection of their inability to love unconditionally. Thank you for helping me see that I deserve better than people who only love me when I meet their expectations." That letter made me cry, not from sadness but from a kind of fierce joy. My pain had become purpose. My rejection had become a bridge to others who needed to know they weren't alone. But the real test came 8 months after Ethan's call. I was at home on a Saturday morning writing my next article when my phone rang. The caller ID made my heart skip. Ethan. For a moment I considered not answering. I'd built a good life in the months since our last conversation. I had my work, my newfound sense of purpose, a small but solid circle of friends who'd proven their loyalty during my darkest moments. I didn't need him anymore. But curiosity won out. "Hello, Ethan." "Delilah." His voice sounded different. Smaller somehow. I read your article. Your series." "Did you?" "Yeah. And I wanted to. I needed to call and what?" Long pause. "I'm sorry." The words hung in the air between us. 8 months ago, I would have broken down crying with relief. 8 months ago, I would have forgiven him instantly, grateful just to have my brother back. But I wasn't the same person I'd been 8 months ago. "Sorry for what specifically?" "Yes. For what I said. For how I said it. For cutting you out." "Why? What do you mean, why? Why are you sorry? What changed? Another pause. I've been thinking a lot about what you wrote. About families and money and how grief makes people do terrible things. And I realized that I was angry at Dad for lying to us all these years, and I took it out on you. That wasn't fair. I sat with that for a moment. No, it wasn't. I miss you, Delilah. I miss my sister. There it was. The olive branch I'd dreamed of for months. The reconciliation I'd yearned for during all those sleepless nights. Do you? I asked quietly. Do you miss your sister? Or do you miss having someone in your life who never fought back, who always forgave you no matter how you treated her? That's not. I don't. Because the person you're apologizing to isn't the same person you called 8 months ago. She's gone. The sister who would have accepted any scrap of affection you were willing to throw her way doesn't exist anymore. Delilah, please. I know I hurt you, but we're family. Are we? The question came out sharper than I'd intended, but I didn't soften it. Because 8 months ago, you were very clear about the fact that we weren't. I was wrong. Yes, you were. But not in the way you think. What do you mean? I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of everything I'd learned about myself in the months since his betrayal. You were wrong because you thought family was about DNA. You thought that because Dad wasn't my biological father, I somehow counted less. You thought that blood was what made us siblings. But now I understand. No, let me finish. My voice was steady, sure. You were wrong, but so was I. I thought family was about unconditional love and loyalty. I thought it meant that no matter what happened, we'd always have each other's backs. I thought it meant that even when we fought, even when we disagreed, the love would always be stronger than the anger. It is, Delilah. It is stronger. Is it? Because when you found out I wasn't Dad's biological daughter, your first instinct was to use that information as a weapon against me. Your first impulse was to hurt me with it. That's not love, Ethan. That's cruelty. Silence on the other end of the line. And Mom, I continued, stood by and let you do it. She chose peace over protection. She chose you over me because it was easier. She loves you. Maybe. But love without action is just a feeling. It's meaningless if you won't fight for the person you claim to love. So what are you saying? That we can't be family anymore? I looked around my apartment, at the new photos on my walls, pictures of me with the friends who'd stood by me, images from the speaking engagements and award ceremonies that had marked my journey back to myself. Pictures of the life I'd built from the ashes of my old one. I'm saying that family isn't something that happens to you, Ethan. Something you choose. Every single day you choose whether to show up for the people you love. You choose whether to protect them or hurt them. You choose whether to include them or abandon them. And I choose poorly. You did. But more than that, you taught me something important about myself. You taught me that I'm stronger than I ever imagined. You taught me that I don't need people who only love me conditionally. You taught me that I deserve better. Delilah, please. I want to make this right. For the first time in the conversation, his voice cracked. I could hear the tears, the genuine remorse. 8 months ago that would have been enough. I believe that you want to, I said gently. But wanting to make something right and actually doing the work to make it right are two different things. Then tell me what to do. Tell me how to fix this. You can't fix it, Ethan. You can't take back what you said or undo the choice you made. But you can make different choices going forward. What does that mean? It means that if you want to be my brother, really be my brother, you need to understand that I'm not the same person I was before you rejected me. I'm not going to go back to being the sister who never stood up for herself, who always put your feelings before her own, who accepted whatever crumbs of affection you were willing to give. I don't want you to go back. I like who you've become. I'm proud of who you've become. Then prove it. How? By doing the work. By going to therapy to figure out why your first instinct when you were hurt was to hurt someone else. By calling Mom and telling her that her neutrality was a choice, and it was the wrong one. By making amends not just to me, but to yourself for becoming someone capable of such cruelty. Another long pause. And if I do all that, Then maybe we can start to build something new. Not the relationship we had before because that's gone. But something honest. Something where we both show up as who we really are, not who we think the other person wants us to be. I'd like that. Then do the work, Ethan. Don't call me again until you've done the work. I hung up without saying goodbye. 3 months later he called again. I've been seeing a therapist, he said without preamble. Twice a week for 12 weeks. Good. And I called Mom. We had a long conversation about enabling and conflict avoidance, and what her neutrality meant to you. How did that go? She cried. Blah. She's starting therapy too. I felt a flicker of something. Not forgiveness, not yet, but maybe the possibility of it somewhere down the line. I also did something else, he continued. I set up a trust fund. Half of Dad's inheritance. It's yours. Ethan, I told you I don't care about the money. I know. But I care about what the money represented. It represented Dad's love for you, and I tried to take that away. I can't give you back the security of knowing you belonged, but I can give you back what Dad wanted you to have. This time the tears came. Not the desperate, broken sobs of 8 months ago, but something cleaner. Something that felt like the beginning of healing. Thank you. There's no strings attached, Delilah. The money is yours whether we ever speak again or not. Whether you ever forgive me or not. Because you were right. You are Dad's daughter in every way that matters. And I should have protected that, not attacked it. We talked for 2 hours that day. Not like the siblings we'd been before. That easy, thoughtless intimacy was gone, maybe forever. But like 2 adults who were learning to know each other again. Who were choosing to be vulnerable, to be honest, to show up as their imperfect, complicated selves. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. There was no magical moment where everything went back to the way it was. But it was something real, something earned, something built on a foundation of truth instead of assumption. 6 months later, Ethan came to my book launch. My series had been expanded into a full-length work about family rejection and resilience. And the publisher had organized a reading at a local bookstore. He sat in the back, and when it came time for the Q&A, he raised his hand. I have a question for the author, he said, standing up. What would you say to family members who realize they've caused the kind of harm you write about? How does someone make amends for something like that? I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the brother I'd grown up with, but also someone new. Someone humbled. Someone who'd done the hard work of examining his own capacity for cruelty and chosen to change. I'd say that real amends aren't about words, I answered. They're about consistent action over time. They're about doing the work to become someone incapable of causing that harm again. And they're about accepting that forgiveness isn't something you can demand or earn. It's something that has to be freely given, if and when the person you've hurt is ready to give it. He nodded and sat back down. After the reading, as people were mingling and buying books, he approached me. I'm proud of you, he said simply. Not just for the book, but for who you've become. For how you've turned your pain into something that helps other people. Thank you. I know we're not back to where we were, he said. And I'm not sure we ever will be. But I want you to know that I see you now. Really see you. And I'm grateful that you're my sister. Sister. Not half-sister. Not the daughter of another man. Sister. I see you too, I said. And I'm grateful that you're willing to do the work to be my brother. We hugged then. Not the automatic, casual hug of before, but something deliberate. Something chosen. A year later, Mom and I had our own reckoning. She apologized for her neutrality, for choosing the path of least resistance instead of standing up for what was right. We started having monthly dinners, slowly rebuilding a relationship based on who we actually were instead of the roles we'd played for so many years. The family photos on my wall now include new pictures, images from my book tour, shots of me with other survivors of family rejection, photos from speaking engagements where I've shared my story. But they also include a few new family pictures. Not many, but enough. Ethan and I at Mom's birthday dinner. The 3 of us at Christmas, looking older, more careful with each other, but genuinely happy. Pictures of a family that had to break apart completely before it could come back together in a healthier way. The relationship I have with my family now isn't the one I had before. It's not built on assumption and obligation, and the comfort of never having to examine our patterns. It's built on choice and work, and the hard-won knowledge that love without respect is just sentiment. But it's real. It's honest. It's voluntary. And maybe that makes it stronger than what we had before, not weaker. I still get letters from readers who found hope in my story. Letters from people who've been rejected by their families and are learning to build new ones. Letters from family members who've recognized their own patterns of conditional love and are working to change. One letter, from a woman named Patricia, particularly moved me. Your book taught me that being rejected by your family isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of your real story. The story where you get to decide who you are and who deserves a place in your life. Thank you for showing me that sometimes the most loving thing a family can do is fall apart completely, so they can choose to come back together in a healthier way. That's what I want people to understand. Family rejection is devastating. I won't minimize that. The phone call that tore my world apart was one of the most painful experiences of my life. But it was also, in some ways, one of the most important. Because it forced me to discover who I was when I couldn't rely on family identity to define me. It taught me that I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. It showed me that I deserved love that wasn't conditional on my compliance or my DNA or my willingness to accept less than I was worth. Most importantly, it taught me that real family, the kind worth having, isn't something you're born into. It's something you create day by day, choice by choice, with people who see your worth and choose to protect it instead of exploit it. My name is Delilah Morrison. I am a daughter, a sister, a friend, a writer, and a survivor. My family told me I wasn't family anymore, but they were wrong. Not because biology makes family, but because love does. Choice does. Daily commitment to each other's well-being does. And I am surrounded by family. Both the ones who found their way back to me and the ones I built from scratch. That's the story I want to leave you with. Not that family rejection doesn't hurt, it does. Not that you should forgive people who haven't done the work to change. You shouldn't. But that you are more resilient than you know. You are worthy of love that doesn't come with conditions. You deserve people in your life who choose you day after day, not because they have to, but because they want to. You deserve to be family to someone. And maybe, just maybe, you deserve to be family to yourself most of all. The phone call that nearly destroyed me ended up saving me. It freed me from the prison of other people's expectations and gave me the key to my own life. Sometimes the cruelest rejection is actually the kindest gift, because it stops you from wasting your life trying to earn love from people who were never going to give it freely. And sometimes, if you're very lucky and everyone involved does the work, it creates space for something real to grow in place of what was broken. Either way, you win. Because either way, you end up with what you deserved all along. A family that chooses you. Thank you for watching. If you want more videos like this, please like, subscribe, and share.